Ladies and gentlemen, big ferry news.
Kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome to another edition of Big Hero News. Kia ora, Chewie. How are you, sir?
Kia ora, Pat. I am furious, but I think everybody knew that was coming. I think that the only thing more predictable than today's announcement from Ms. No Boats was that I was going to be furious today.
Yeah, let the ginger loose. Hey, we gotta inspire the ginger. Everyone's internal ginger should come out today. I think that's what we're going to be talking about. Just speaking of, we've had a bit of a rush on a certain lot of merch, which is still on the site. You better get in quick.
Real curious.
Limited editions of Nicky No Boat stickers and Nicky No Boats hoodies and t-shirts. And that's still all up on bhnshop.nz. There's some more merch coming tomorrow, but I've been running around actually posting stickers today. So I've had a very busy day of doing that, so I haven't had time to look to it. And strangely enough, there was a couple of people, Gary Charles being one, and Magenta being another, who were rocking the tops in, come on, in Wellington today, having a good old time. And then I believe Chewie, the t-shirts went to the house. And as they came out of the house on One News, I guess they got seen again.
Gary, you legend.
And there's Magenta there. Sorry, Magenta, I was trying to get you framed up as well, but it was all a bit blurry and moving. Obviously, the cameraman went, oh, what are those? Oh, and did this. And that was the best freeze frame we got. So there's...
Can we now put a blurb on the...
as seen on One News.
As seen on TV.
I'm
One News.
absolutely going to write on the listing as seen on TVNZ News. Fantastic. And probably put that photo up there as well. So yeah, everybody knows what we're talking about tonight. We may, if we've got time, get into the conversation, because there was a really, this conversation around an open letter written to King Charles by iwi saying, help, this government's breaking our agreement. Help, bro. We'll get into that if we've got time. There are a couple other things as well, but obviously it's pretty obvious where we're going to start the show. And hang on, I've got Bomber's script. So what we're going to do is host New Zealand's best and greatest weekly podcast that's not funded by New Zealand On Air for one night, because we've put together the greatest political panel in New Zealand broadcasting history. From the Maritime Union of New Zealand, let's say welcome to Carl Findlay. Carl, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Spokesperson for Infrastructure from Labour, it's Tangi Utikere. Welcome, sir.
Pat, Chewie, good to be back.
And from the Council of Trade Unions, economist Craig Renney. Look at us! This is the first time we've done a fiver. All right, gentlemen, we want to get into this. Viewers of this show know that this has been a bone that we've refused to let go of since they got cancelled. Obviously, nothing's changed tonight, but maybe what we could and should do is start off with the there's two One News stories, and I've actually got clips from the actual press conference. I don't know how much we'll play, but maybe what would be sensible is just to start off by playing the One News story, the first story, just in case someone's living under a rock and they've just crawled out at 8:45 and they don't know what's going on. So let's just do that first, and then we'll get to it. We'll let the dragons free.
Much awaited plans for the new Cook Strait ferry today, but it'll be a much longer wait until we see them actually set sail, and a lot of details been left floating. As announced last year, the IREX project's so-called Ferrari ferries planned by the last government at a cost of $551 million sunk, and confirmed today, replaced by two smaller ones. But the government won't say how much the new ferry plan will cost, and it revealed it'll still consider alternative proposals from the private sector. A new Crown-owned company will be set up to take charge of buying the new ferries, expected to start operating in...
Even that will be set up. Why isn't it fucking set up already? Will be. Everything's will be. They haven't even set the company up. Will be set up. What's going on?
2029. In charge of the project, Deputy Prime Minister Winston Peters, who's been given a new role, Minister for Rail.
And I'm sorry, I know that we'll all know what this term is, but does anyone remember the term baubles of office? I will not take the baubles of office. He seems to have changed his tune quite drastically on rail-enabled ferries. Just happens to coincide with a new bauble being offered to the man.
Our coverage begins with One News reporter Jessica Roden in Picton with reaction.
1 year ago exactly, Cabinet axed the mega ferries project with no plan B in place. And big news today, there's still no firm plan.
But what I can do today is look at all of you and commit that no matter what, we will be procuring 2 ferries that will ensure a safe and reliable ferry service. We will be doing that.
So we haven't done it yet. We will.
What's that?
It's coming in the
I had
future.
12 butts.
This is the announcement that somewhere in the future we will make another announcement about the ferries, and we promise that those ferries will be bought, and we'll tell you about them in the future announcement.
Or less than the cost of Project IREX.
Inter-Islander has 3 ferries now, all approaching 30 years old. The government saying, trust us, there will be new ships before they retire.
We still have more to learn, there's no doubt about that, but I think we're starting to understand the pathway forward.
Sorry.
Watching today's development closely was Kitty Fitton.
You couldn't make it up, could you?
She and her 5 children were on board the Kaitaki last year when it lost power.
I am pretty horrified because I have no idea how the infrastructure is already creaking at the seams. We already know that it's not working.
The old plan would have seen the first mega ferry arrive in 2026. The new plan is for replacements to be operating by 2029.
Right now we've got another 15 trucks crossing over tonight that we want to make sure that we've got a reliable crossing. So we want some immediate solutions to the reliability of the Cook Strait. 5 years away for something to happen is still a very long time.
Experts have recommended the ships shouldn't be rail-enabled, which means freight would be transferred on.
We'll talk about this, but what expert would be recommending that? We'll look at that. Like, experts are recommending a worse service for rail in New Zealand. I don't get that, but you guys are going to be the experts. We'll come to you in a sec.
But ministers are keeping the door open about that. They've also had advice the new ferries should be 200 metres in length, only slightly longer than what we already have. That means less additional portside infrastructure is required, but upgrades still essential. The wharf behind me was due to be demolished under IREX, and while it's had its life extended, it needs to be replaced in the next 5 years. The issue is that until we know which ferries will be using facilities like this, upgrades can't begin. And the ports have been told they'll have to foot more of the bill.
We need to look at the business case and we need to understand the proposition that's being put to us, what we're going to have to design and provide, and how that's going to be paid for.
For those answers, the minister's saying, bear with us, we'll get back to you in March.
Good one.
Until then,
We've got absolutely no choice but to use this dilapidated, outdated equipment that, quite frankly, almost killed us.
Jessica Roden, One News.
Right, there's the first story, gentlemen. I think probably Carl, Maritime Union of New Zealand, someone who's working with the people who are actually working with the ferries. You're probably the first and best to give us a heads up. What are your initial thoughts, reactions, anything you want, Carl? Throw it out there.
Yeah, well, what can you say? Shocking. It's hard to believe these people. The finance minister is the finance minister. 12 months later, and we'll still none the wiser in what they're doing. But the real problem here, where we're concerned, is what about the crew? What about all the people working on those? Not just the 3 vessels of the Inter-Islander, but the other 2. They're at the end of their life as well. And these guys go out and carry out their work day in, day out, professionally, doing the best they can. Their anxiety levels are through the roof. And these people are supposed to be in business, making all the big business decisions, can't even get this right or up and running, or give these guys any sort of sense of a future. It's just disgraceful, really, how they treating the people of New Zealand.
Hey, Carl. The television news item showed obviously a customer who had a situation where she was stuck on the ferry and she found it very dangerous. What do the workers on the ferries think about the current stock and the safety of them?
Well, again, they're just very concerned. They go to work every day to do their best under the circumstances because they need to put food on the table. But they're looking over their shoulders, wondering what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. And now that's been extended. What, another IREX is supposed to come online in 2026, and now they've got to wait another 4 or 5 years if they make a decision in March. So again, yes, just terrible. And I might say too, I might add that disgraceful today. Nicola Willis did look like she couldn't wait to pass the ball to Winston. She just couldn't wait to get rid of that. And Winston will fix it, you know. So and Luxon, what did Luxon say today, or sometime in the week, that she's the best finance minister ever? This would be one of the biggest clangers in political history in New Zealand, or in the top 3 at the very least, and they can't get away with it.
Tangi, as a infrastructure spokesperson for Labour, what are your thoughts about today?
Yeah, with transport, but look, it is, I think Carla's right, it's an absolute disgrace to hear and watch that press conference today. You know, it's been a year and we've all been waiting, and what we got today were a couple of things actually. One was an announcement from Nicola Willis that basically means nothing, because many of us were actually waiting to hear, well, what is the size of these new vessels? How much will they cost? Who will be building them? You know, not to actually have an announcement that a new company is going to be formed to basically do the work that we all thought was being done over the last 12 months. And second thing is, which I found utterly distasteful, was Nicola Willis basically saying, I have delivered.
Yeah.
Well, what she has delivered is basically a blank sheet of paper. And I do feel, actually, for the hardworking staff who are on the vessels and around the vessels, as Carl has alluded to, because it actually is just really signalling to them from this government and from Nicola Willis that she actually doesn't care. She's sort of, you know, well, that's it, I'm moving on. And it also shows that Christopher Luxon clearly doesn't have any confidence in Nicola Willis, because he has removed her from this and has handed it over to Winston.
Interesting as well that Mr. Luxon wasn't at the press stand-up today. He kind of threw them both to it and was like, oh, this has nothing to do with me. He's off doing other things.
Yeah, he's certainly wanting to distance himself from this lack of decision that's been taken by the government. I mean, the other thing, of course, is that the government parties themselves, I don't think, are talking to each other. We've got David Seymour saying stuff that the new Minister of Rail is now saying, you know, well, that's not very helpful, making comments like that, you know, an hour after the comments were made. It is just an absolute form of chaos that's going on over there.
Craig, you kind of bring in both the you know, the union and the representing the people, but also the economists' perspective on this. I got told by someone that your Blue Sky account was going off today. Is that right? Tell us your initial thoughts after today's non-announcement.
Oh, well, I mean, today we had no plan. We've got no idea. We've still got no ferries. We've got no idea where the replacement ferries are coming from. We've got no idea how much they're going to cost. We've got no idea who's going to pay for them. We've got no idea how the port infrastructure is going to be delivered. We don't know what the impact is on the economy. We don't know what the impact is on the government books. We've had a year, and we're essentially no further forward than we were when the Minister of Finance cancelled the project. But lest anyone thinks this is sort of just a one-off, it's just, you know, it's a couple of ferries, who cares? The Cook Strait ferries carry $15 billion of freight every year, right? And the ferries, according to reputable studies, contribute about $3.3 billion in value to the economy. They deliver thousands of jobs. And every Kiwi is a user of the Cook Strait ferry service.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone consumes food grown on the South Island, or goods from the North Island used on the South Island. So everyone uses that service. And as a consequence, the decision we've had today is going to put more costs on Kiwi households. Can you remember that laser-like focus on the cost of living? This is just put the cost of living on. Can you remember that decision where we were going to be, you know, getting the country back on track? We are literally taking the tracks off the ferries. We've just spent millions of dollars helping to refurbish Hillside, and we should have, And this sort of announcement puts Hillside and South Island Rail really at jeopardy. So there's a whole bunch of reasons today that the kind of non-announcement really matters. And the fact that we don't have any further way ahead, what we have was an announcement that we have a focus group to have an announcement in the future.
Chewie, I'm going to grab you in a sec, but before, just about the whole rail, this was part of the stand-up. I watched the whole thing. I watched it twice, in fact, so then you definitely don't have to, Whānau. This is only 11 seconds, well, not even that actually, where Nicky No-Boats says whatever the solution, it's like whatever amorphous unknown entity out there, rail freight will still get across the strait. Here, I'll let her say it in her own words that I've just quoted exactly.
Whatever the preferred solution, rail freight will continue to be able to be transported between the North and South Islands.
Now, of course, it doesn't need to be rail-enabled ferries for that, and they danced around that quite a lot on the announcement. They did answer some straight questions as well, because what they're basically able to do is go, well, we don't know what it's going to be. We're working that out now. Will they be rail-enabled? They might be. Will they not be? They call it bridging, don't they? It might be. So they're actually not answering anything. Chewie, questions or comments?
I think you've missed what Nicola's talking about there. Like, yeah, she didn't particularly spell it out well, but I think what she's implying there is that you're going to build a rail-enabled ramp, and we're going to get the trains going really fast, and we're just going to yeet the freight across, like, because that's the same. This whole thing has been bizarre, okay? Because it's all stuff all of us, were talking about 12 months ago. When she was talking about the second-hand Corolla, people immediately went, I wonder how many ferries of suitable for New Zealand are available. And I think the number was 24, and none of them were available for sale.
Correct.
So straight away there, within days of her making that second-hand Corolla remark, people were like, that's not going to work. We're going to need to buy new boats. And so here we are, 12 months later, and it seems she might have realised that we've got new boats, but we still don't have any sort of, like, if she had found a shipyard that would trust the New Zealand government, she would have been talking about it now. If she'd been able to go to Hyundai, cap in hand, and go, actually, we fucked up. Yeah, maybe we can keep going. Maybe a little bit smaller. She would have been crying about it. This is 12 months of incompetence. It's 12 months of inaction from a government that says that they're laser focused on all these things that matter to Kiwis. Laser focused on the cost of living. Laser focused on working really hard for the average Kiwi. They've been working really hard on fuck all. And I don't understand why this is, like, we've still got media just repeating, not just throwing it at their feet and go, what the fuck is this? They're just repeating the handouts. They're not going to Simeon Brown. Look, you've got this massive transport budget. What the fuck is it doing? You reckon increasing a speed limit 10 kilometers an hour on a strip of motorway is going to unlock the productivity innately in the New Zealand highway system, and then you're going to piss that away because when the truck finally gets to the port, we've got to double handle all the freight on both sides? There's costs to that. You're going to cut the portside infrastructure out of the project to make it seem cheaper. You're then going to load it onto local councils that own the ports. It's ridiculous. And you're going to give us ships that are supposed to last 30 years that are only marginally bigger than the ships we bought 30 years ago. So you're saying that there's no growth in this country in population, in freight handling, in 60 years? That's stunning.
I think
these guys have no long-term mind at all. Anytime, like the next time you're talking to someone and they go, I voted for National because they're the guys that get things done and they're the only ones that can handle the economy, you load them into a trebuchet and you fire them into the fucking sun. Just shout at them for 40 minutes until they give up. That's the rule now.
I think we get it. I think Chewie's angry. I think the subtle vibe underlying
just clip that one bit.
Chewie's angry. I want to come back to you, Carl, because it seems like for a long time, Winston Peters has been spoken of as sort of a friend of rail and someone who's been saving it and trying to get it there. I'm just going to play a little clip from the stand-up today. He's just spent 2 minutes before this part of the conversation avoiding the question of rail on, rail off, wouldn't answer it. And so then he got asked, but is it your preference for rail on, rail off, as opposed to bridging? And this was his response.
But your preference is for rail-enabled ferries, is that correct?
We're looking at all the options, as I said, going forward.
Is two going to be enough?
For not having rail-enabled ferries, Mr. Peters?
Say?
Will you, Winston Peters, agree to buy ferries that are not...
Well, actually, look, I've been reading your articles and also watching on TV all your forecasts.
This is where he'll attack the media.
That person needs to be admonished. He's got it all wrong, hasn't he?
Is two ferries going to be enough at the moment?
You're for rail, you're setting up a 4A company. You won't confirm the 900 million. What's wrong?
Well, I won't confirm the 900 million because it's dribble, that's why.
Is two ferries going to be enough at the moment?
Carl, how are the people responding? How are your members responding, and particularly to Winston Peters, if anything? Or what else would you like to add to this conversation?
Well, all I would say there is, I guess, Winston understands rail probably better than Nicola and Luxon and all them. And he's come out publicly, I believe, and said he doesn't, he said to his party that they want rail-enabled ferries. So I don't know how he's going to get around that one and look them in the face if he turns tail on that. So I guess, we just have to fucking see where it leads us into the next few months. All I know is that we're working hard trying to get in to have a meeting with him. We don't think he's got a solid plan, so we want to try and get in there and help him with that solid plan and push him in the right direction.
Have you been spoken to in the last 12 months at all, or very much?
We had a couple of meetings with Shane Jones. And we talked about coastal shipping and the ferries. So we have had some contact, yeah.
And what about the Maritime Union in general? Like, if you could wave your magic wand and get exactly what you want for the ferries, what would it be?
Rail-enabled ferries, mate. Like Chewie pointed out, go back cap in hand. Because they still haven't sorted out the break fee, which is a bit strange. Still a bit strange. I don't know. Everyone's sort of saying that the deal's off, but they still haven't sorted out their break free. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Craig might have a better idea, but so whilst that's still on, if they could possibly go back, and Winston might be the guy that they have a bit more faith in than Nicola. Who knows? I know I'm reaching out for a bit of hope here, maybe being a bit naive, but just fucking sorry I'm swearing now, but just want a bloody result, and some certainty for the people running around on that stretch of water every bloody day, putting their lives in danger.
Yeah, and obviously everybody, the customers that use it and the people who run it. That's what we want for everybody. Tangi, you sit opposite the Minister for Rail. I guess every day you're in the House. He's been given his new bauble. What do you think about him? I wouldn't say he's quite running away from rail-enabled, but certainly he won't commit to rail-enabled, will he?
No, he won't. And if we step back and listen to the rhetoric that's been used by the government, we've heard this week from the Prime Minister saying, well, they will be rail compatible, which basically means not rail-enabled. And Carl will tell you that. So if they're not going to be rail-enabled, then they're using the rhetoric of rail compatible. I think we know where, unfortunately, that is going to head. But look, we've been very clear that the solution does need to be rail-enabled. Like, that is the only way that the main trunk line between the North and South Island is not going to be severed. We've had investments down the South Island. We have jobs at risk down further deep south and along that main trunk line as well. if there is no rail enablement, not only is it going to add additional costs to the consumer because of the freight that's going to be basically have to be double handled, but it's just going to shut down the productivity in the south. And let's also remember that this is a government that seems to have forgotten where the South Island is in this country. When we look at their transport plan around their roads of national party significance, not much happening down there. This is just another blow for those mainlanders.
Craig, commenter here in the chat gave us this bit of information yesterday within the industry says he knows. As he said yesterday, you wouldn't, thank you for the super chat, $600 extra per container for non-rail enabled ferries. Who pays that? Yep, us, the consumers. It's honestly a joke. Your reaction to that? Anything else you want to add?
Well, certainly we're going to pay more if we are ending up double handling the cargo. We also pay more because the turnaround times for the ferries will take longer, around 3 hours turnaround, rather than a much shorter turnaround for a rail.
Right.
What concerns me more was actually something that was sort of slightly underplayed during the press conference, which was there's a statement: the government has not taken any decision on private sector involvement, but is open to proposals that involve private sector capital or expertise, which is code for, under a Section 4A agreement, they can sell up to 49% of the company to a private firm. If they're doing that, we're all going to pay more because we're going to pay somebody profit. We're going to pay somebody a nice fat line of return as a consequence. Now, that seems very likely to add further costs and add much more complexity to a problem that's already complex, that already has lots of actors in it. So while we're doing that, can you remember during the last election when the now Prime Minister promised that there were going to be no more asset sales? We weren't interested in asset sales to pay for tax cuts. But here we are, and we're now potentially selling up to 49% of the firm because the way we've established it allows exactly that to happen. And that's likely to add more costs to consumers, not just the cost of not doing the ferries right now.
I wonder if we look back at those statements, which is how they often get around it, saying this term, we said no more asset sales this term, because obviously this is 2029. That's going to be almost the end of a second term, should they still be there. Chewie, sir, comments or questions?
There's so much that they're pushing to the side or hiding under cups and thinking that we're not going to notice it. Like, they're not going to tell us how much extra, like as Craig pointed out, how much extra time. And the adage is time is money, right? The turnaround on these ferries, the double handling of containers and that sort of thing. I saw an estimate. Where is it? $150 a container, $7.8 million a year as an estimate. They're not telling us how much the cancellation fees are because that's commercially sensitive. That could be fucking anything. Extra shunting costs, the money that they've already paid. The money that is going to be spread out over the potential 30 years. What about the lost productivity the moment that one of these boats breaks down? And I guess the productivity loss of every minister that's involved in this cornucopia of shit fuckery as they dive and cover their own ass and will turn to the people that work on these boats, as they have done before, and gone, it's their fault. They're lazy. They don't maintain the ships. They're just trade unionists, because that seems to be a go-to for this government as well. So let's blame the guys that are trying to maintain these ships at the end of their lives in one of the most challenging bits of water on the planet.
It's interesting, Chewie, then you said productivity there. Of course, you kind of hinted at this before, but to spell it out, remember the changing of the speed limits outside schools. They want to do that to help New Zealand's productivity. And there was research that was done that said it would save like a 3-minute journey between Auckland and Wellington or something. So if they're trying to increase productivity of New Zealanders by changing the speed out time primary schools, but as you've said, Craig, there's an additional 2 hours turnaround time. There's the hypocrisy. Carl, you're kind of our industry guy here. What do you want to leave the people with? Is there anything you want to make sure that everyone knows about and what we need to know to hold this government to account?
Oh, just guess again. We've already touched on it today, but I just want to reach out to the crew again to make sure, and Chewie sums it up really well there. Just say again, this is a monumental stuff up. Don't want to use Chewie's words, but I should.
Oh, please.
Any other, if this happened in my industry where I'm a wharfie, used to be a wharfie, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, I'd be investigated, I'd be dragged away for a drug and alcohol test if I made a mistake, a monumental mistake like this. And then I'd be sacked for it. So if it's good enough for blue collar workers, it's good enough for Willis, because this is absolutely terrible. And for some reason, I know we're all doing the best we can, but New Zealand, blue collar New Zealanders are having a problem cottoning on to this. What this, the real grasp what this is all, what's really happened here. And I was just saying today to the guys, and maybe we need Craig's help, but we need to get those finance figures out there and really tear those apart, because again, if we look back at the interview today, they're terrified about those figures getting out there. So we need to get out a real simplistic, follow this A, B, C, D, and there's the figure at the bottom there, and that's what it's costing you. And this government has the cheek to go on about money. So yeah, I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, and the thing I thought today was they're going to try and spark this up as it's costing less than it would have under Labor, but that's because they're not going to include the costs that they're now forcing onto the ports. I guarantee you, if they added up all of the costs, forget who pays them, but the costs of this, the break fee, the ferries and the ports, it's going to be more money for less product. They're going to end up paying a Ferrari price for a Toyota Corolla rather than the other way around. Tangi, from a political point of view, looking across at these people, what have we missed out on? What do people need to know?
Well, it is really disheartening. And, the reality is that we've been waiting for 1 year since Nicola Willis made that captain's call to basically cancel the contract. And actually, last week with Kiwi Rail in Scrutiny Week, we only found out that the contract had actually been cancelled last week publicly. They said that. And they also confirmed that the negotiations for the cancellation costs will go well into next year. So whilst we continue to wait, for that, the ka-ching, the cost to the taxpayer will continue to rise. They've also had to engage a specialist maritime lawyer who's based in the UK to, assist with negotiations. Goodness knows who else is assisting with negotiations. The figures that are being bandied around are nowhere near the actual cost that this is going to end up costing the taxpayer at the end of the day. That's what Kiwis need to know, is that Nicola Willis and this government have cancelled the contract. Already the costs are continuing to mount. They're going to have to wait longer. There's no guarantee when the ferries are actually going to be here. They like to say 2029, but that's all dependent on the procurement process. They're going to be smaller ferries. They're likely to be, well, they won't be rail enabled. And that's going to have huge implications for people, whether in the North Island or the South Island.
But probably, unfortunately, more so for the South and the North, Tangi. I mean, probably, because it's more of a line south than north. Craig, I want to do the same for you, give you a chance to share from a kind of economist point of view, but also working with the union. But one thing I do want to ask you particularly, we keep hearing Nicola Willis saying it'll be far less. It'll be far less than what Labor would have spent. Now, I'm a very simple man. If you offer me $1 million house for let me work this out. Rather than paying $10 million for a house, if I paid $9 million and got half the property, then it's actually, I would have paid a bit more and got, do you know what I'm saying? It's like you can pay far less. If you pay 2/3 of what it was, but you only get half the product, then that's a bad deal. Is this what we're going to have to wait to find out, that we've paid 2/3 as much according to them, but only got half the product?
And the honest answer, Pat, is that we absolutely have no idea at all.
Yeah.
We have, on an apples for apples basis, we've taken 2 ferries that cost $551 million, and we now have 2 ferries that will be smaller, not rail enabled, will not have the hybrid technology that the two ferries that were previously going to have, and will not be able to use hydrogen that the 2 previous ferries were going to have. We have no idea how much they'll cost, but it's likely much more. And then we'll have to add on the cost, as Carl has quite rightly said, of the cancellation of the 2 ferries previously on top. So because we have to pay handsomely to not own the 2 ferries that we previously were going to own. So all in all, it's likely to be at least double the cost of the original contract. And that's before we get into the port infrastructure. That's before we get into what we as economists like to talk about, the loss of time value. So if the new ferries were coming in 2026, there's all that productivity gain and all of that extra trade that could have been done because there were larger ferries that were rail enabled, moving goods and services more quickly between the 2 islands. Now the new ferries coming in 2029, all of that loss is a real loss to the economy. It's lost jobs, it's lost output, it's lost productivity. So we lose twice as a consequence. And the thing that really worries me, because I'm very sad, because I really like a budget, is making decisions now which will push the cost beyond the next budget year. What that means is the next budget won't have any numbers in for the ferries. That will make it look artificial if the numbers are better than they really are, because we still haven't made a decision about what, where, and how we're going to buy some new ferries. So all of this is still to be done. And to be frank, there is a future government somewhere, likely that's going to have to clean up the mess that's in front of us. And we're going to look back at this essentially as a huge lost period of time and a huge lost opportunity to deliver the ferries that we all wanted to see.
We had Chewie on Thursday night, and I made Chewie promise that if he's the next Prime Minister or a Prime Minister when these ferries come in, to hold a public competition for their name. So we can name one of them the Christopher Luxon and the other one the Nicola Willis. So then every time we're on one of those ferries, realising it's a piece of shit compared to what it would have been, we are reminded who got them. Just before we wrap this up and say goodbye to Carl, Craig, one more thing about money. I'm hearing a number bandied around today of $4 billion. First time I've heard it bandied around. Now, they say it's in a 2023 report, fine, but my sense is they had no clue about that number until they found a hole, because if they knew about $4 billion when they cancelled the ferries, they would have said $4 billion. They didn't. They said $3 billion over and over and over again. Today, they're saying $4 billion. Is this believable, or have they just luckily found a little number in column 47D of an article that came out, in 2023, and they're bringing it to the case now because they weren't talking about it when they cancelled them?
I mean, the politics is politics, but they will take whatever large number is in front of them and say it could be this. That happens to be true. It could also be a lot smaller, but they're not going to say that. So we don't know. The number $4 billion is associated with a projection, assuming that costs continue to escalate. We have no idea whether the costs would have escalated. We have no idea whether or not the $4 billion is a realistic number. What I can tell you is that we're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to cancel the contract as it is right now. That's certain. We found that out last week, as Carl quite rightly said. But what I can tell you is that it's going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars in lost output and productivity waiting for new ferries to turn up. All of this has to be added against the potential cost of just doing the work that was in front of us in the first place.
Yeah.
So, in any good cost benefit analysis, it isn't just as simple as saying it's very big, let's not do it. It's what's the alternative? And if the alternative is more expensive or worse, you should do the thing that's in front of you.
Yeah. All right. Hey, Carl, we're going to leave you now. We talk about a couple of other things, but as I said, as our resident expert tonight, as the person closest to the outworkings of these ferries, is there anything you want to leave us with? Anything we've missed out?
No, it's all been covered as far as I can hear and see. So just thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I think, Craig, honestly, if you could do some work on the numbers, your credibility and your standing in the public arena, those figures would go down really well and be really
one of the many benefits, Carl, of CTU membership is that you pay my wages. So, you know, I'll be delighted to help.
All right, Carl. All the best, Carl, with your fight. We'll do what we can from this side, and we'll talk to you sometime soon, eh?
Yeah, thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All the best, Carl. As the National Secretary of the Maritime Union of New Zealand. Now, thanks, guys, for hanging around, because there's a couple of other things we want to cover off on, and you guys are the right people to speak to. Tangi, we want to talk to you about something that's going on in the House at the moment. The fast tracking that's going on at the moment. What's happening in the House? What do we need to know?
Yeah, so Parliament's currently sitting under urgency. Started at yesterday, but 9 a.m. this morning. Will sit right through till midnight, and again tomorrow, and potentially Saturday as well. But at the moment, we've got the fast track legislation currently going through the Parliament, which is basically a ramroding of environmental protections that are in place, and basically creating a list of just under 150 different individual projects that can basically be fast tracked. So we're putting up quite a bit of opposition to that. It was something that was put through as a select committee process, but a really short, truncated one. So the public have had little opportunity to scrutinise that. And then last night, the Speaker of the House made a particular decision to basically rule in an amendment by the Minister, Chris Bishop, which we don't think was right. It sort of breaks the rules, so to speak. And so today we have expressed that we have no confidence in the Speaker, Jerry Brownlee, which is regrettable that we have to do that. But it is, in our view, what we had to do.
I read about that today as well, Tangi, the vote of no confidence. What does that mean in a practical sense? Is this just you guys saying we want it known, or can something come from it?
Well, it is us saying today in Parliament that, you know, I mean, Jerry Brownlee was elected with the unanimous support of the Parliament. And, you know, I have to say that we've worked really well alongside him on procedural matters and the like. But this is fundamentally about the rules of Parliament. And, you know, the people that sit in those roles, they take advice from the clerk. The current clerk, Dr. Wilson, is someone who actually wrote the rule book, so he knows what he is talking about. He provided that advice to the Deputy Speaker, who ruled that the government's amendment was out of order, that it couldn't be debated and voted on. And then the government sought to recall the Speaker. So, look, what we hope is that the Speaker will reflect on the decision that is taken, and hopefully he will do the right thing and try and put that right.
And what's going to happen in the House up until Christmas? Is this why the fast tracking's under urgency now, to get it out of the way? Chewie's been saying the whole term that National's trying to front load all these horrible things, so we'll forget about it, you know, come election time. Is this what's going on now as well, to be under urgency?
Yeah, there are a lot of bills that have been put through the House. So there's this one, there's the rental tenancy arrangements one, there's 3 strikes legislation, there's a whole pile of laws that the government want to use urgency. It's worth noting that this is the government that has used urgency the most. You know, even when we were in government last term, we did not use urgency to this extent. So it is, you know, significant that they are trying to ram through a whole pile of pieces of law. Some of them are not even subject to public scrutiny. So that'll set you off even more, Chewie. You know, that they're not even providing enough.
Please don't. There's only so much we can handle. Please don't. No more. Speaking of the Chewie, questions or comments for Tangi about the fast tracking and stuff?
You mentioned, what is it, 150 odd projects that are part of this?
Yeah.
If you had to give a percentage of ones that are actually worthwhile and won't take decades to clean up afterwards, how many of them are good versus how many of them are bad?
Well, I mean, there will be some in there that potentially are good and may not have as much of an environmental impact. But the issue, of course, is that they're going to go through a whole process that is quite different to others. There's one in my particular electorate that is about a residential opportunity that will deliver houses. You know, the interesting thing is that particular parcel of land for the last few elections have hosted National Party vote the local candidate, vote National Party signs on them. So the issue is that these private rights that would be given to some of these individuals who are on the list, or some of these companies, are people who are supportive of the government. And so they're not open to the normal scrutiny that Joe Bloggs, you know, one street over would have a chance to receive as well.
What about the flip side to what Chewie's just asked? Is there one or two that are more egregious than the rest? Like there's some really scary ones in there? Yeah,
there are some. I mean, there was one that was referred to today in the Wellington region, for example, that would impinge, as I understand it, on some of the regional park sort of aspects. So there are those things that will just, if this government want it, will happen. And so we're putting up a fight saying, actually, that's not right. So this particular bill, been going all day today, and I can have a look at, they're still voting. So we're still going at the moment. I'm on duty right through to midnight. So look, we'll do what we can.
It feels like, when you're at school and you had a dental appointment or something, but you get out of a test. It feels like that's what we're doing for you tonight, Tangi, a little bit. Hey, Craig, while you're still here with us and we're going to talk to you next about another thing, anything you want to ask Tangi or mention to him about what we're talking about?
I mean, Tangi's covered it really. I mean, sort of, the challenges that we're being sold. This is an essential means of delivering economic growth. It's an essential means of trying to unlock investment. And in reality, what we're likely to unlock is a lot of value for some people and not a lot of value for others. And to do that without democratic scrutiny, to do that through Parliament in ways that don't allow local communities to be able to have some say about what's going on seems a little bit unjust. So all power to your elbow, Tangi, in terms of trying to make sure that Kiwis have some say in the future of where they live.
Yeah. All right, Tangi. Hey, thanks for giving us some time tonight. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you. If we don't talk to you before Christmas, have a good one. But we'll talk to you soon.
And to you. Thanks, guys.
All the best.
Give them hell.
This is like our three-way conversation. Now, Craig, back to you. There is a news story about you going around at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
That the government's a bit grumpy and they've blockaded you from, is it Haifu? What's this all about?
So Haifu, for those of you who are following along at home, the half-year economic and fiscal update is one of the two set pieces of the Treasury each year where the government essentially opens the books for the public and allows the public to have a see about how much money we've spent, what our debt is, what our investment plans are, and it allows us to see, for example, the Treasury's economic forecasts for unemployment, for growth, for other things, interest rates, and it gives us a real sense of where the economy is, where the boffins at the Treasury and the Reserve Bank think the economy is likely to be, and do the numbers match with the rhetoric of the government? So the government says things are going better, things are going well. Do the Treasury forecasts show that? Does the government saying we're cracking down on debt? Is that actually true? And so this is one of the 2 times a year, the other one being the budget, where we actually get a chance to do that. And we get a chance to do that with Treasury officials in the room. So what that means is that we get a chance to go, hang on a second, can you explain what that means for that reason? And thirdly, we also get to do that with all the journalists in the room at the same time. So the journalists can ask questions of the analysts in the room, me saying, what do you think this means? And also we can speak to journalists and say, if you're looking for an answer to this question, it's on page 12 or on page 72. Normally every year, the CTU applies for a seat in the Haifu lockup, and we're granted one. That's a perfectly straightforward, normal thing, where an organisation representing more than 300,000 workers and 27 different trade unions, and we have a real keen interest, both from a public sector union perspective, in working out where the government's going to invest, what it's going to spend money on, but also from a private sector perspective, we have a real interest in working out, well, hang on a second, what does this mean for the economy generally? What's the government doing to support jobs and other things? We've been declined access this year for the first time on the grounds that we're not a financial institution. Now, I would have said that was a good thing, but because we're not a financial institution, we apparently don't need the privileged access which we have had in the past. And so, I have personally objected to this because we're now going to find ourselves in the very odd situation where overseas investors reading the analysis from Bloomberg or from ANZ who are in the room will be better informed than workers because they won't have had access to the information.
Right.
Why? We won't have access to the Treasury officials to ask them, what does this mean? We won't be able to put out a press release because we won't have read the books. So the press will be reporting the information that is provided to the financial institutions who might have very different incentives or views to, say, the trade union movement. So, and it's a really odd, very anti-democratic thing, where we're taking away the ability of civil society to talk to the public about things that mean things to them, like how much money is the government borrowing? What does its tax take look like? What do they think interest rates are going to be? What is unemployment going to be? How much money are they spending on health, education, housing? We won't have access to any of that information until everyone else does. And so as a consequence, we won't be able to talk to journalists and to the public meaningfully when that information becomes public.
I think the question was asked, I haven't previewed this, so I'm sorry if it's wrong. It's only 60 seconds, and I think this is the Prime Minister being asked about you. Let's just have a listen.
Renney has had his application to go to the HIFU briefing declined by Treasury. Did Treasury give you a heads up on that decision, and do you support it?
Yes and yes.
Why?
For two reasons. One, the purpose of the lockup is ultimately for the media to get advance notice of really important financial information so they can process it, digest it and communicate it clearly to New Zealanders. Craig Renney is not a member of the media. We have traditionally also invited financial institutions who have market-sensitive audiences who also require time to digest that information. Neither is he part of that. I have been advised that both Craig Renney and the Taxpayers Union will no longer be attending the lockup. I'd also just say, last time Craig Renney went to a lockup, he made up a...
Can I just say, I don't know what she's about to say, but the fucking attitude. She might as well do that. Last time, it's almost like a skit. Sorry, we'll just get to the end.
Last time Craig Renney went to a lockup.
Sorry, Joe.
I was just going to say, like, without knowing what she's going to say, it's almost like last time Craig Renney was at the lockup, he ate all the muffins, and then there were no muffins for anybody else. And when I sat down on his chair, he made it sound like I made a fart noise, and I didn't fart at all.
Let's just have a listen. Yeah, I don't get the attitude. Like
accurate.
it's kind of real Mean Girls, kind of, clicky. It's weird from a finance minister.
Is he part of that? I have been advised that both Craig Renney and the Taxpayers Union will no longer be attending the lockup. I'd also just say, last time Craig Renney went to a lockup, he made up a false quote and attributed it to me, and I don't believe that that is practice consistent with the privilege of attending a lockup.
All right. So you're being slapped over the wrist for what? Do you have any idea what she's talking about? What's the fake quote and stuff?
So we put out this was the financial statements of government. We put out a press release, and immediately afterwards, the financial statements of government, and we attributed a quote to Nicola, which due to a formatting error had a wrong number in it. It was her words. It was just the wrong number. We then, when we were told about it, we changed it, and we, on the press release, told everyone else that we had made an error, and this was the correct press release to use. There's no conspiracy. We weren't deliberately trying to mislead anyone. There's enough information in the government documents for us to be able to say lots of things without us needing to mislead. Yeah. And it's not in anyone's interests for us to mislead anyone. So this is just simply, to me, this is just another excuse for a reason why we're not allowed in the lockup. And it also, in the advice that was given to me by the Treasury as to why I was not allowed in the lockup, that certainly wasn't a factor in any of the advice they gave to me. It was about the fact that we're not a financial institution and we're not a member of the gallery journalists. Bearing in mind, we've had non-government organisations in the half-year economic and fiscal update for as long as we've had half-year economic and fiscal updates. And it's not as if it's a full room. I can tell you, they use a large room at the Treasury and half the seats are empty. So it's not a space issue. It's not an electricity issue. It's not a cost issue. They don't put on tea and coffee. There's nothing else. It's just simply they have chosen to take people who, for example, we may disagree with the Taxpayers Union a lot, but they're perfectly entitled to be able to look at the books and make decisions themselves and to be able to say things to their constituency. we may disagree with Business New Zealand, but they've got a perfectly legitimate ability to talk to businesses. Both of those organisations now would not be able to access that lockup. Child Poverty Action Group wouldn't be able to access that lockup. Tax Justice Aotearoa Action Station, a whole wide range of entities will now not be able to access the lockup, and for reasons we don't understand, because to us it's quite clear we're there to digest information so that when this becomes public, we're able to say what this means for working people and what the perspective of working organisations are for of the budget and of the government books. It's just a bit strange.
A couple of things. I have a solution for you. Craig, would you please do some media reporting on behalf of our business at Big Hairy News? Would you please be a Big Hairy News reporter and then your media? And the other thing I was going to say is if honestly people are being kept out of things for quote unquote misleading, this whole government needs to kind of get rid of themselves in, because hello, misleading every single day.
Well, I was going to say, if any organisation who's had a formatting error is blocked from the Treasury lockup, we're going to be blocking a lot of people.
Yeah.
So there's a real risk here that actually we're doing something without really thinking through the consequences of it, because what we will have is a lot less information and a lot less transparent analysis of what's in the government's books when the books are released. And that doesn't help anyone. That doesn't help you. It doesn't help the New Zealand government.
Chewie, anything to wrap up?
Yeah. So do you respond to Nicky No Craig's now? She's basically taken the podium to call you a liar. Like, is that something you just let lie?
Nicola's perfectly entitled to her opinion. I'm not going to get into whether or not Nicola thinks I'm a liar or not. That's kind of frankly a bit childish. The more important point is actually there's a lack of information about something really important, which is how much money we're spending. Are we spending the money that we've promised on health, on education? Are we seeing the outcomes in terms of unemployment rising, in terms of climate change, emissions reductions? Are we seeing new state houses being built? Are we seeing the other things that people really care about? The honest answer is we won't be able to tell, because we're not in the building. We're not allowed in the building to actually find out. We have to wait. And then once we've waited, that news cycle is gone. We won't be able to comment in the same way. And it actually, it's not about me. It actually harms everyone to not have the ability of organisations like Business New Zealand, we may disagree with them, like the CTU, in the room and able to describe what's going on, not only for their members, but for the public at large.
Craig, I'll get the lawyers to draft up the employment offer, get that across to you quick smart to put you on the payroll, Chewie, the payroll, to be a reporter and a media member of BHN, and we'll go from there. Hey, dude, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Everyone always loves having you on. It's been an absolute blast. Hopefully you enjoyed that as well, especially the conversation around well, not enjoyed, you know what I mean? Found it valuable. And I like your T-shirt. And you said before we came on that the last time I told you to stop wearing suits, and you did. Is that a CTU T-shirt?
That is indeed a CTU T-shirt.
All right. We need to do some swaps. We need to do some swapsies. We'll get you a Nicky. We'll do your Nicky No Boats for a fight back. Deal?
Deal.
I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for coming on, man. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate. You're a champ.
Holy mackerel. I'm actually seriously, there's nothing stopping us. I have a registered media company. When is Haifu? I think Haifu is the 23rd or something. I wonder if we can still do it. I'm going to give it a go.
So
I'll see if I can get BHN access to Haifu tomorrow. I'll try it.
Pat, I was under the impression that this was supposed to be the most transparent government ever.
That attitude that she just put out, It was really.
it was pointed out. It was pointed out that not only is Craig denied to be in the room, but also the TPU.
Yeah.
Sorry, Taxpayers Union. Because they're not a union. Like, whether I agree with the Taxpayers Union or not, this is one of those things where I think more eyes are better, because it's a dense document. I want people to pull out as much information as possible and get it out there. And as we've seen multiple times on this show, Craig isn't excellent communicator of quite a complex subject.
Yeah.
And it
that could be the problem, though, Chewie.
It doesn't
That
play
could be
in
the
the news
problem.
cycle in the same way.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to get someone that's going to sit down and spend 15, 20 minutes doing a deep dive into some of these things. Like we're starting to hear now that this government is borrowing more money than ever before. And it's something that they lambasted Labour for just printing money.
What's the
and
word?
Yet we're getting less and less for that money. We're not getting boats. We're not getting hospitals. We're not getting new schools. We're not getting new cops. We're not paying teachers. We're not paying nurses. Where the fuck is the money going? We know.
There's a word.
Going to landlords.
I think the word is leveraged. It might be the wrong word, but I heard Nicky No-Boat say it today about the ferries, basically going to borrow as much against them to pay for it, which is, if it's infrastructure, it's not the worst thing in the world. But we always say that if you are going to judge these guys, you want to judge them by the standards from the last guys that they judged them by, and borrowing was the great evil. Hey, look, just to wrap up the conversation around this, we do have to have a look at One News showing off our merch. This is the end of the conversation when they just had a chat to some people, some of the politicians as they were going through the hallways.
Claim the ferries project would cost about half of IREX.
That's not helpful because it's not accurate.
A lot still unclear as the government inches towards new ferries.
All right, let's go live.
Where the market
claim the ferries project would cost about half of IREX.
That's not helpful because it's not accurate.
A lot still
unclear.
Hey.
BHN in
the
girls.
I'm surprised there hasn't been a mass uptake of merch tonight. There's been a bit. But I was picking 1,000 shirts to be sold just to give us something else to. Hey, now, guys, we have a huge number of chats. I'm really sorry we didn't get a chance to get to them, but you know how it works when we have guests. It's not there. So we'll just go through them now. Peter Syme says, I think Steamboat Winnie has potential. Yeah, we're talking about that today. Steamboat Winnie to go along with Nicky No-Boats. Con job. Who's surprised, says Brian. Mr. Arvid's Eat Your Heart Out, the working group. I guess that's talking about the panel we had on. 5 for 5, the panel we had on. Thanks, Gold. Nick, holy moly. That gets the panel we had on. We should replace the S with a $sign. Oh, because Nicky is costing us way too much effing money. Bloody Nicky No-Boats. That's not bad. That's not bad, Wooming. James says, Nicky No-Boats, she remains smoke and mirrors. Thank you for the super chats. Kiwi, Kiwi Bird, industry experts are nice to haves. Yeah, it is funny. This is one of these examples where all of a sudden they're citing experts, and then when they don't, they find it inconvenience. They don't cite experts. It's very obvious. Nicky No-Boats is still valid until 2029. Good. Let's sell some more of them. Tangi will have a cleanup job to do. Yep, there's a lot of people saying things like that in the chat. On behalf of Kiwi Rail BHN Whānau, I'm sorry that this has happened. We are told by Kiwi Bird, can we get Winnie Old Boats shirts? Nicky No-Boats, Nicky New Boats, Winnie Old Boats. I do like the Steamboat Willie in the style of Steamboat Mickey from the 30s,
just
whatever it was.
Big cigar.
Tiffany says, I want to see the full cost next to the last plan. Yep, they're going to avoid that at all costs. Pardon the pun. Nicky No Clue, says Mr. Harford. You wouldn't download ferry. That's really
Pat,
hard
you're
to
showing
read.
your age there.
Yeah.
You can read that straight away. You wouldn't download a ferry.
Yeah, I got it then.
You're not down with the kids.
But I'm dyslexic, so some of my letters are always a bit messed up anyway. So if it messed up and messed up.
See, now I've done a hate crime and I feel bad.
It's all right. I've done a hate crime tonight with your ginger, so we even though I grew up ginger. So. We will soon have ferry departure tax. Well, it becomes privatised, mate. National no growth. Also, the definition of conservative is adverse to change or innovation. Ain't that an accurate definition? Does the Ferrari dealership sell Corollas, says Brother T. Brian says, Tangi, start the limited and ferries up again. Howie, it is all performative. Tax breaks for landlords, cancel ferries, boot camps, up speed limits. You know, there's also the speed limits, that we've got a really bad death rate on the roads at the moment, worse than it's been for a really long time. I know they say correlation and causation, etc., but Coincidence? Maybe, maybe not. Gang patches, all just flexing and saying F you to the nation. They are arrogant, entitled bullies. Thank you, Howie. Wasn't Winnie involved with IREX from the jump? Yep, he was, Luke. You are correct. But like much that happened, like, for example, being involved with a whole bunch of stuff around COVID, he managed to wipe that away and no one is bothered to drive into it. The poem, I hope we get to name the new ferries. I think Boaty, Nicky Face and Titanic. I think they've learned after those guys in the UK did do that and then refused to accept Boaty McBoatface. The only railroading going on in this term is the coalition's legislative agenda. Mr. Alex wanted Tangi's opinion if possible. Is he aware that there is anger in Lower Hutt, that the Cross Valley Link and Petone to Granada is being fast-tracked for construction in 2028? Mr. Arvids again, honorary BHN journalist Craig Renney. Yep, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Imagine the reaction if Labor did this to the TPU. Yeah, well, I guess it has to happen to the TPU, but I wonder if it's a genuine thing or they've gone, I really don't want that Craig Renney in there. We're going to have to make it look non-partisan. So I'm sorry, TPU, you're my sacrificial lamb.
That's what I thought when I read it.
LJ, has the CTU looked into whether that decision can be judicially reviewed? It would attract more eyeballs to the decision, unless also, okay, this is now conspiracy hat, right? The TPU will be there. They'll just be the guests of another media company. Could be. Could be. Craig ate Nicky's muffins. That's why he is banned. Nicky, no muffins. You can get a sense of when these comments came into part of the conversation. Arrived just in time to hear Chewie's big rant. Here is a few weeks late theme. And Tiffany is sticky Nicky, no boats, is seedy, greedy, DDs. There you go. Almost too much for me. So, Chewie, is there anything else you want to pick up on from that? We do have one other story that we could do as well, because I think the letter to King Charles is a really interesting situation that iwi are putting out there at the moment. I'm just going delete, start, chat, delete.
The thing I do want to mention, because, you know, Luxon was obviously not wanting to be involved in this at all.
Yeah.
Remember, he made an announcement yesterday that he couldn't talk about anything because there was an announcement coming today. Yep. So, in effect, Luxon made an announcement about an announcement, which is about an announcement further to come. If there is not a better illustration of what a hollow piss bucket this government is, that's it. Nobody's in control of anything. Like, we've been talking about Simeon Brown. I've mentioned this a couple of times. The New Zealand transport budget that Simeon Brown is in charge of is enormous.
Yeah.
He recently cancelled a project to fix a notoriously bad intersection up north. And the reason, apparently, that he cancelled it was because there were such woke features as pedestrian safety and multimodal travel, such as cycles, mopeds, scooters, that sort of thing, making it safe for people to use that intersection, not just cars. So they cancelled the whole fucking thing. Now, it's in an electorate that voted for National.
Yeah.
The whole town wanted it to happen because the intersection is so bad. And National basically told them, get fucked, because the plan is too woke. And on that note, Auckland Transport won an award today for safety improvements on their network. And our Transport Minister said they give out woke awards to anyone these days.
For fuck's sake.
So, you know, this is the government that we're dealing with. And as always, we need to point out, whenever one of these big projects is mentioned and it's in the billions, we need to point out that they had no trouble pulling the trigger immediately on borrowing money to fund $3 billion worth of tax cuts to landlords.
Oh. Did landlords get a break, did they? I didn't know that.
Every time we talk about this, like, they could have not done that and funded the ferries. They could have not done that and funded the Southern Hospital here in Dunedin. two of the biggest albatrosses around their neck at the moment. They could have disappeared one of them. They could have increased taxes in some way, very small amount, and come up with another $3 billion and done both of those projects. And they'd be done. The Dunedin Hospital would almost be finished by now.
Mm-hmm.
The ferries would be on their way to completion and only a couple of years away from going into service before the old ones are out of service. Now we don't have either of those things. And they're getting lashed for it, rightfully so, and shouldn't be left off the ropes ever for this just incompetence. It's incompetence and meanness, and it's all done from a place of ideological positions, backhandedness, and out in the open fucking corruption. Now, I'm not in the House, so I can point at them and say, you are corrupt and you're a bunch of liars. And this cannot stand. The anger that I see daily from people as a new horror is announced, as a new level of incompetence, a new layer of meanness directed at people that are unable to defend themselves against it. Day after day, week after week, for the last 12 months, and we have 2 more years of it to go. Are we going to sit here and take it?
We are not. The question is, can we bring enough people along with us? Because that's the answer. Because if the left vote, people, the left win. Remember, I've always used America as an example. Donald Trump basically got no more votes than he got against Joe Biden. Kamala Harris got 15 million fewer votes. The left did not vote. Not actually blaming you guys. You're in America. You can't be that smart living there. Because that you have the choice to do it, but that's the reality. All right. I'd like to have a look at the story, Chewie. Are you down for that?
Yep.
Because I think it's a really interesting angle that that iwi, because we've always talked about, even people who are trying to have a crack at it, they're like, oh, so they can go speak to the king about it. It's between the crown. It's like, obviously it's been passed on. Responsible has been given to the Crown in New Zealand. But actually, people of the detractors of iwi issues and treaty issues have been saying, why don't you go talk to King? Guess what? They did.
To other news, and Māori leaders have written a rare open letter to King Charles calling for an intervention as tensions continue over government policy. The National Iwi Chairs Forum asks the King to ensure the government does not diminish the Crown's honour in relation to the Treaty of Waitangi. For more on this, let's go live to political editor Mikey Sherman. You've read the letter, Mikey. What more can you tell us?
Yes, that's right. One News obtained a copy of this letter late this afternoon. It's signed by more than 500 Māori leaders from across the country. It begins by acknowledging the recent death of the late Māori King Tuheitia and the fondness that King Charles had for him. But then it goes on to say, we wish to raise a constitutional matter outlining the promises made under the Treaty of Waitangi, agreed to by Queen Victoria in 1840.
Really interesting. Really interesting. Really interesting. And if you know anything about the King bro, he is someone who the ecology matters, Indigenous rights matters. He is down that path. Too much for some people, more conservative people in the world. So really interesting.
It says your new New Zealand coalition government has promised to attack Te Tiriti o Waitangi and the rights of Māori, saying the government's legislative program unilaterally redefines the meaning of rangatiratanga, gives the state greater powers to take away Māori children and puts Māori land and seabed at risk through mining. The list goes on. Now, iwi leaders then request an intervention, asking King Charles to remind the coalition government to act with respect.
Really interesting. Honestly, really interesting. Our Governor General is the head of state, pretty much just an arbitrary kind of figure, or a ceremonial kind of figure, but in truth, really interesting.
and responsibly to act as an honourable partner on his behalf. Now, I spoke to one of the iwi leaders who signed this letter. Here's what he had to say.
Letter that was submitted to King Charles this week equally was to remind our treaty partner of our obligations to each other and to the promise made by our ancestors.
Okay, Mikey, any reaction from the government yet?
Well, One News reached out to the Prime Minister's office for comment. We received a statement back from Māori Development Minister Tama Pōtaka, who says while we don't always agree on everything, the government remains committed to working with iwi and Māori to help achieve shared interests. Now, this letter has already made headlines over in the UK. The media outlet The Guardian has reported on it. Iwi chairs say they do expect to raise this letter with government ministers directly. We can expect that should take place in meetings, if not at the beginning of the political year at Rātana, and then of course at Waitangi.
Tēnā koe, Mikey. Thank you very much.
Interesting, Chewie. I just think it's a really interesting thing to do. It's almost like they've gone to grandpa, like granddad, who normally lets his kids and stuff just get on with life, but they've gone to granddad and gone, granddad, and I'm not saying that because of his age, but the one that's above, like granddad, mum and dad, whatever, they're just not following the rules that great-great-great-grandma put in place. Can you help a brother out? I'm really intrigued by it.
It's an interesting thing. I don't know if I think anything will happen for it, but
I don't think it will. I don't think King Charles will do anything, but it's a really interesting point.
I want something to happen from it, though.
Well,
can you imagine Luxon trying to answer a statement that the king puts out? Like, how would he field that, apart from saying, well, look, what I'd say to you is King Charles doesn't know what he's talking about, fight me.
Yeah, I don't think anything will happen because I think King Charles, the monarchy in general, are pretty much just figureheads now. And yet, someone's put in the chat he's dealing with cancer. Did you hear what Trump did this week? Trump basically outed he had very bad cancer. Hadn't been made public yet, and Trump was like, he's dealing with very bad cancer. It's truth. There's a question in here. I think it was the super chat from Mr. Arvids. Yeah. How does this work with Dominion Day, like you've mentioned? So I've talked about Dominion Day a couple of times. It was when New Zealand stopped being a colony and became a dominion. And when we're a dominion, it means the crown, the parliament here has taken on the responsibilities of what the crown used to be, the royalty used to be. Here's the actual, I'll read it out to you if you want. I highlighted it there. 100 years ago, yada, 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 1907, 26 September, New Zealand became a dominion. In 1907, following a debate in the House, New Zealand Parliament asked Britain that New Zealand's status be changed from colony to dominion. A proclamation was issued that New Zealand would become a dominion with effect from 26 September 1907. The change of status had no constitutional effect, but it was seen as a very significant symbolic step towards nationhood. The day was a one-off public holiday and buildings, yada, 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 yada. So it basically means, in theory or in practice, New Zealand is its own nation. And if it's its own nation, those things that used to be responsible of the monarch is now responsible of the monarch's representative, which is the Crown in New Zealand, the government. So yeah, I think it's really interesting. And the thing about it that is more interesting as well is I don't think Charles is going to come out, because I don't think they do that. I think they're very careful about getting involved in politics, but international media is picking up on it. I think that's very interesting as well. If nothing else, it's got, people in the UK talking about it. Oh, what about our little, siblings, our little cousins in the bottom of the world, the Antipodeans? What's happening down there? What are these bullies doing? It's interesting.
Absolutely. And something that the Seymour has shown, he was not happy with the amount of international attention that was directed our way from Hana's haka. So this is just really hammering that nail.
Yeah. Interesting times, people. There's a couple more super chats in there. Let's get to them and then we might wrap up. Mm-hmm. Look at you, all you 1,000+ people watching us right now. Little Simeon, been listening to too much Joe Rogan, all the woke roadworks and this and that and the other thing. I've been watching a little bit of commentary on Joe Rogan recently. He has really just become, I think a lot of people who are in this world broadcasting will say that kind of Joe Rogan of 2015 when he endorsed Bernie Sanders, it looked like he was genuinely an interested person in mulling over ideas, and now he's just gone MAGA, and he said he had to endorse Trump because of the lies that, what was Kamala's running mate? Tim Walz said. So he basically, because Tim Walz allegedly lied, which is not the case, he made a couple of errors, that was the reason he had to endorse Trump, because of Walz lying. And it's like 32,000 lies officially the last time Trump, Joe Rogan has admitted that when Trump sat opposite him in podcast, he lied to him, that Trump lied to him, but he had to support Trump because of the lies that Tim Walz told. It's just, it's a full conversion.
The false equivalence is pretty obvious there.
Is that Tane? Tane. She took it personally and got the sooks. What a child. Kiwi ZD. Woke is an adjective derived from African American vernacular English, AAVE, originally meaning alertness to racial justice and discrimination. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it used to have positive, but it's been owned as a negative now. You just don't want to tell those people who say, "What is a woman?" that meanings can change, because that's exactly what's happened with the word woke. The meaning of it has changed.
About that, I've had the habit now for probably a good 6 months of whenever someone drops in our comment section or any other comment section, using woke as an insult or something like that, just ask them, what does woke mean to you?
Yeah, what does it define it for us?
I have not had a single answer, not one, not even just trying to flub an answer or anything. They're just gone. It just disappears, those people. There's just
a
steaming set of shoes in front of a keyboard somewhere.
And many of you have heard my answer before.
You've got one,
Mr. Oliver. I should get it because it's actually recorded. It's on a podcast I do with him. Karen Plunkett told me that woke meant anything he disagrees with, and that's actually about as honest as you can get, because it is 100% right. There's people who use that means I disagree. It's woke because I disagree with it. Wooming, well played National iwi chairs forum. Nice. I agree. I think it's interesting. Winebox Winnie. Yes, unfortunately what Winnie did with the Winebox back in the day was actually, that's his one thing. People talk about the gold card. That means nothing, because the gold card was originally talked about as a way that seniors could get things like cheaper electricity and stuff, but all it became, have you got Stowcard on your phone? You know how you store all the cards in one thing? So every time you go into New World, you just do your phone to get your discounts. There's an app that you put all your cards into. That's basically what the gold card is. So the gold card came out, and all of these people who had 15, 10% off things for different companies and that, they just all went onto the gold card, and it's just an amalgamation of other things. So yeah, but the wine box was something. I want to say a huge thanks actually to someone who has just purchased 3 Nicky No Boat t-shirts. No, we don't normally do that, but that's Jeff in Manawatu.
I know what his family are getting for Christmas.
Oh, sorry. No, Jeff in Whangarei, sorry. Just in case anyone.
Smooth, good catch.
Yeah, no one's all that.
Hey Pat, I want to finish on a wee story if I may.
You may. Or I could go. Shall I go? I'll stay.
No, you stay. You stay right there. I saw this story come across today. Former New Zealand soldier Jordan O'Brien sentenced to 14 years in jail by Russia for fighting in Ukraine. Does that mean that Russia has captured a Kiwi? No. They just have his name, and that's it. This is Jordan here with the Kiwi patch front and center on his plate carrier there. He has been fighting in Ukraine since near day dot in one of the volunteer units over there. Russia reckons he's a mercenary there for financial gain. Yeah. So yeah, they have sentenced him to I think 14 years in jail and a fine of 1.3 million rubles, which is about $8,
$12.
Yeah. So there we go. His comment on X, and yes, it did make me log back into Twitter just to check this. I've received my sentence, lol, 14 years and docking me 12.5 grand. I don't think he's too worried. I think the funny thing here was one of the things that's really pissed off the Russians is they've charged him with like invading Russia, because invading another country is bad.
Yeah.
Did you know that, Pat?
I'd heard that before.
Invade another country, that's bad.
What if, hang
so
on,
Russia,
hang on, but what if it's Israel invading? Is that good? Are they allowed to?
Depends who their friends are, I guess.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
Or alternatively, it depends if you just don't give a fuck about whatever anybody says. Sidebar: we still have an Israeli ambassador in New Zealand, and we still have a Russian one too. Should be remedied.
I'm just reminded of people we've met who have been sentenced to things extraneously, that's not a word, but but never like. And I was just reminded, do you remember our conversation with is it Sasha? Justine Sachs. That's right. Justine Sachs. And she said she made a silly joke about Lord and ended up getting her banned. Oh, because she made a silly joke about Lord, and then Lord chose to not perform in Israel, and then Justine got banned from Israel. So she's an international criminal as well, who they're out there, who obviously won't go to Israel, and I'm sure that your boy there won't go to Russia anytime soon.
He's in good company. I don't know. You remember former mayor of Dunedin, Aaron Hawkins, was mysteriously banned from ever visiting Russia.
Really?
Out of nowhere around the start of Russia's invasion into Ukraine, because I apparently said something anti-Russian. And that was enough for them to put out a press release with a laundry list of New Zealanders who are now banned from Russia. And that would just prompt me to go, oh no, I can't go to Russia. Whatever will I do? Oh, but yes,
it's such a pain, those kinds of countries, because we did that. I had the documentary with Paula Penfold where they made a documentary on taking the girl back home to Russia, the girl in New Zealand who was adopted out, and they did the whole trip back. And parts of it looked like the countryside and the people looked amazing. It looks like an amazing culture. It's just the murderous people who run it and the danger to be there that's not quite as attractive as one would think.
Like if Russia banned me from going to Russia, I would email them and see if they could put that in the form of a certificate that I could then print out and frame. So yeah, basically I just wanted to draw attention to this story because A, it's very, very funny, and B, just to draw people's attention to the fact that there are still New Zealanders fighting for Ukraine against Russia's illegal invasion, and that is one of the most brave and honorable things I can think of. And my direct line of historical thinking goes straight to the people that fought in the Spanish Revolution.
Just speaking of, little side note tangent to wrap up with, next week is our last week for the year. And I often feel a little bit forlorn that we've dropped the ball a bit on Ukraine, which is why we've tried our best not to drop the ball on Gaza and what's been going on there. But we probably should, in the last week we've got, actually address some of the stories from the year. And we'd love your involvement in it. You've got our email address, bighairynews@gmail.com. Things you want to hear us reflect on, any stories from the year you want us to do. I think we're going to do Monday to Thursday next week, and I think that Emily and Magenta will join us on Thursday, and then that'll be the final show of this for the year. Perhaps next Friday there might be something new for you. Stay tuned. So let's have a think about that. You guys have a think about that as well. If there's anything you want to particularly touch on, and that also comes to your favorite people. And I know everyone's favorite person for this year is Hannah Maipi Clark, and I am in negotiations trying to get her. She's young and she has had worldwide exposure, a lot of it not good. So Te Pāti Māori are actively trying to protect where needed. So we will ask, and I will talk honestly and openly with them, but I got to say to you, I think I won't say unlikely. Whatever they decide is going to be fine. 21-year-old. Yeah.
That's no shade on Te Pāti Māori.
No.
That's like good stuff. Like,
yeah, it's actually, they're looking after her. They're looking after her. All right, guys, a really good show tonight, and thanks so much for all our guests who joined us. And before anyone bloody well asks, there's no dog here, so don't go Nala ? Which of course now everyone's going to do, because there's no dog here. Well, there is dog here because she sheds everywhere. There's no dog located in this room right now, is what I'm trying to say.
Help us settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate.
I don't know if that's appropriate. That's bullying.
Push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things that we need to be wary of. Like the rich have the hand out for rewards, while the many have to work at what they can't afford. And the rest of us ain't paying attention, or maybe have questions we're too worried to mention. Other media is still dwelling on trivial facts, vetting bees from the rice and the mice from the rats, and picking and choosing a warpath to run, and linking ourselves with the hill to die on. It's gotta come down to a welcoming vibe, with an A and a self and a higher in mind. All heavily, either this way or that, and will be analyzed by what Chewie and Pat. With the evil in the world trying to mess with your head, and you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking chivalry's dead. Each night, 2 nights, they're gonna sing you to bed. It's Big Hairy News.
All right, team, thanks for being with us tonight. Is it Wednesday today or Tuesday? It's Wednesday, eh?
Yes, it is Wednesday.
Yeah, so we're going to be having it. We put off our conversation with the Māori translator tonight because of the ferries. We have rebooked that for tomorrow night. So that'll be coming up, finding out another happy joy story about the Treaty Principles Bill. Hooray! Tomorrow night. And other than that, everyone be safe. We want to see you all back here tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Be well, and we'll catch you then. Chewie?
Never stop fighting.
Unless you need a nap.
Never stop.
If you need a nap.
I'm not tired. You're tired.
All right, team. See you tomorrow. Hooroo.
Cheers, fam.